You ever get that gut punch realization that your marriage has shifted from, "I can't keep my hands off you," to, "Hey, did you remember to pay the internet bill?" That moment hit me hard, like walking into a glass door you didn't see coming. Karen and I have been together for 5 years, no kids, just the two of us, doing our best to build something solid. Honestly, we were doing pretty well. We both worked our tails off, managed to save up for a house, and even put together a decent little nest egg. We had the whole, "look at us, we're real adults now," thing going on. But somewhere along the way, even with all that going for us, something just snapped. At first, the changes were so small I barely noticed. Things just happened less often, then almost never, and before I knew it, it was like that part of our relationship had vanished. Out of the blue, Karen looked at me one day and said, "I just don't feel like it anymore." Now, I'm not clueless. I know people hit rough patches, life gets stressful, you get tired, all that. I figured, hey, it's just a rough patch. We'll get through it. But we didn't. The weeks dragged on, turned into months. I tried to be understanding. I asked her if something was bothering her, but she always said no. I brought up the idea of seeing a counselor, and she just laughed it off. Every time I tried to talk about it, she'd hit me with the same line, "It's my body, and what I want is all that matters." I've always thought that respecting boundaries is important, but marriage is supposed to be a partnership, right? Apparently, Karen didn't see it that way. In her mind, my feelings and needs didn't count for much. It wasn't a discussion, it was more like she was laying down the law. And her law was, Brian doesn't get to have any fun anymore. At first, I tried to convince myself she was just dealing with something personal, maybe she needed some space. But then, one night, I was using her laptop to check my email, my phone was dead, and I stumbled onto something that made my stomach drop. Her browser history was packed with stuff like, how to control your husband without him realizing it, men should learn to live without intimacy, why saying no makes you more powerful in a relationship, and teaching him discipline, the art of denial. I just sat there, staring at the screen, feeling sick. This wasn't just stress. This wasn't a phase. She was doing this on purpose. My wife, the person I trusted most, was actually researching ways to manipulate me. Suddenly, everything clicked, the cold shoulder, the way she brushed off any talk about our issues, how she'd shut down every conversation before it even started. This wasn't just her being distant, it was all part of a plan. I closed the laptop, leaned back, and let out a long breath. I honestly didn't know if I should laugh at the absurdity or just start packing my things. So, to sum it up, my wife had basically crowned herself the queen of our marriage, where only her wants and needs mattered. Meanwhile, I was supposed to just smile, nod, and accept my new role as a cash machine with no say and no love life. And you know what? I still tried. I really did. I suggested we sit down and actually talk things out, like two grown-ups. She accused me of being obsessed with sex. I brought up couples therapy, she told me I was pressuring her and called it emotional abuse. I even tried to just ignore the whole mess, hoping maybe time would sort it out. Spoiler, it didn't. Instead, Karen started putting on these dramatic shows, full-blown, over-the-top scenes with tears, wild accusations, and storming out of the room like she was auditioning for a soap opera. One night, I calmly asked her if she even wanted to work on our relationship. Her answer: "This relationship is fine. You're the problem, Brian. You're selfish, entitled, and obsessed with your disgusting masculine urges. You don't respect me at all. You only care about one thing." Look, I was willing to be patient, to listen, to try and work things out, but let me tell you, it's nearly impossible to have a real conversation when someone's yelling at you in your own living room like a supervillain giving a speech in a Marvel movie. Karen had convinced herself she was some kind of hero, bravely fighting against the evil forces of me, men in general, and even biology itself. But despite all that, I was still hanging on, still hoping this was just a rough patch, maybe something she'd snap out of eventually. Then came the meetings. Karen started going to these so-called empowerment groups. At first, I thought it sounded awesome. I mean, who doesn't want their wife to feel strong and independent? But pretty soon, she started coming home with some pretty out there ideas. She made a whole new circle of friends, women who seemed angry at the world, especially at men. And I'm not talking about the usual, guys should help out more around the house, kind of talk. No, this was next level stuff, like, men are basically parasites, and, the world would be better off without them. She'd say things like, women are the backbone of society. If it weren't for us, men would still be living in caves, eating dirt. I couldn't help but laugh. Big mistake. She shot me a look that could freeze lava. You think that's funny? You're exactly what's wrong with the world, Brian. You don't respect me at all. I let out a sigh and tried to lighten the mood, the way any guy in my shoes might. Come on, babe, I respect women so much I might just be the world's greatest feminist. I love women. That's why I married one. Honestly, I think you're the most beautiful person I've ever met. I just want you to be happy, and I'm worried about you. This seems like depression or maybe something else going on. The look she gave me, man, it was pure disgust. There's nothing wrong with me. The real issue is you. You don't use your brain, Brian, you think with your little wrinkly sausage. And right then and there, I realized my wife had officially gone off the deep end. A week went by after Karen's proud announcement that my brain was apparently located below the belt. 7 days of awkward silences, meals that felt like hostage negotiations, and me racking my brain trying to figure out how we ended up in this mess. I was still clinging to the hope that maybe, just maybe, we could fix this, that Karen hadn't completely lost it, and that we just needed the right kind of help. So, I did what any desperate, semi-dignified husband would do. I reached out to a couple of professionals. First up, I talked to a psychologist. Just a regular guy who deals with couples, communication problems, all that stuff. He listened to my story, jotted down some notes, and then leaned in and said, Brian, what you're describing sounds less like a marriage and more like a power struggle. She's laying down the rules, and you're expected to just go along with it. But real intimacy is about partnership, not one person calling all the shots. That actually made a lot of sense. But I still couldn't figure out why she was acting this way. So, I decided to get a second opinion, from a sexologist this time. I knew there was no way in hell Karen would ever agree to see someone like that, so I had to get a little creative. I set up a small, hidden camera in the living room, not for anything shady, just so I could go back and watch how she acted, maybe pick up on something I was missing. Then I invited Dr. Evans, a well-respected sexologist, over for what I hoped would be a calm, grown-up conversation. When I walked in the door with Dr. Evans, Karen was already on high alert. She took one look at him and her eyes narrowed. Who the hell is this? She demanded. Babe, this is Dr. Evans. He's a specialist in relationships and, oh, for crying out loud, Brian, you're bringing a doctor into our house. Are you out of your mind? I barely got a word in before she was off to the races. You're pathetic. You really think I'm the problem? You think you can just drag some random expert in here to fix me? This is humiliating. To his credit, Dr. Evans didn't even flinch. He just stayed calm and said, Mrs. Karen, I'm not here to fix anyone. My goal is simply to help both of you work through this together. Shut up, nerd, she snapped before he could finish. I just buried my face in my hands. Step 1, embarrass Brian. Step 2, insult the expert. Before things could spiral any further, Dr. Evans tried a new tactic. Karen, there's no pressure here, but would you be open to having an honest conversation about why intimacy has become such a battleground? And that's when I saw it, her whole attitude shifted, right there in front of us, the anger was still simmering in her eyes, but then, out of nowhere, Karen gave this sly little smirk. She looked at me with the kind of confidence you'd expect from a movie villain about to reveal their evil plan. All right, she said, since my husband is apparently so fixated on this, I've got a solution. I braced myself, not sure what was coming next. If Brian is really having such a hard time living without intimacy, he's welcome to go get it somewhere else. I blinked, not sure I'd heard her right. Wait, what? She just shrugged, all casual, and said, look, I'm a supportive wife. I'm giving you permission to go relieve your stress with some other desperate woman. There you go, problem solved. Dr. Evans looked like he'd just been hit with a plot twist he'd never seen before. As for me, I just sat there, trying to wrap my head around what she'd just said. So, just so I'm clear, I said, taking it slow, you're actually okay with me going out and meeting another woman? Like, on a date? She folded her arms and rolled her eyes. Oh, please. Men are all the same. You're all after one thing. So go ahead, sweetheart. Get it out of your system. Just don't come whining to me about it later. I glanced over at Dr. Evans, and he looked right back at me. Neither of us had a clue what to say. Karen, meanwhile, just picked up her phone, leaned back on the couch, and started scrolling like she hadn't just handed me a hall pass to cheat. That was the end of that conversation. Dr. Evans and I shared one last, painfully awkward look before we quietly made our way to the door. Stepping outside, I took a long breath and let it out slow. I'd gone into that talk hoping for some kind of breakthrough. Instead, I walked out with permission. And deep down, I knew this was just the beginning. A couple days after the whole permission fiasco, I found myself sitting in Dr. Evans's office, watching the footage from my living room like it was some kind of historic event. Dr. Evans sat next to me, arms folded, jotting down notes every now and then. I just kept replaying the moment Karen so casually handed me a free pass, over and over. So, what's your take? I asked, rubbing my forehead. Dr. Evans let out a sigh. Brian, I'll be straight with you. What your wife's doing isn't just about sex or intimacy. There's something else going on here. Like what? I asked, half joking. Some deep-rooted trauma. Is she having an affair? Did she join a secret society? He gave a little shrug. It's tough to say, but what's obvious is that she's playing a game, and she wants you to lose. I stared at the screen, watching Karen's smug little grin as she brushed me off like I was some fool begging for attention. So, what am I supposed to do? Dr. Evans paused for a second. Normally, I'd say talk it out, try therapy, look for some common ground. But with this level of manipulation, Brian, you're dealing with someone who's after control, and right now, she thinks she's got it. I leaned back, thinking about everything I'd tried, patience, reason, compromise. None of it had worked. So, if Karen wanted me to go out and get it out of my system, then fine. I'd do exactly that. I'd take this whole crazy situation as far as it could go, just to see what would happen. If you ever need proof that the universe has a twisted sense of humor, try downloading a dating app after being out of the game for years. I wasn't even putting in much effort. My plan was simple: grab a drink with someone, have a normal conversation, maybe feel like a human being again. But then I met Mia. And Mia was a breath of fresh air, not wild or reckless, just easy to be around. She didn't come with emotional baggage, hidden motives, or any of that weird power struggle stuff. She had this infectious laugh, a sharp sense of humor, and could turn even the dumbest topics into something fun. I laid out my situation for her as sanely as I could manage. Her reaction? She nearly spit out her margarita laughing. So, let me get this straight, she said, grinning, your wife basically kicked you out of your own marriage and thinks she's won. I nodded, feeling a little sheepish. She just smirked and said, well, she's in for one hell of a surprise. That night with Mia, I remembered what it was like to just exist without all the tension and guilt. For once, I wasn't tiptoeing around someone's moods or second-guessing every word out of my mouth. I could just be myself. And honestly, it was the first time in years I felt truly free. Of course, that peace didn't last long. The storm hit fast. One evening, I was hanging out in my apartment, yeah, my own place now, since I'd officially moved out, when my phone started blowing up with a ridiculous number of messages from Karen. At first, I just ignored them, figuring it was more of the same drama. But curiosity got the better of me. Big mistake. The second I picked up, I got blasted with a meltdown that could have won an award for Best Dramatic Performance. "You cheated on me," she screamed so loud I had to hold the phone away from my ear. "What are you talking about?" I asked, honestly confused. "Don't you, what, me, Brian? I know all about your little affair. I know everything." So, she'd finally caught wind of Mia. Not that I was hiding it. Unlike Karen, I wasn't interested in playing games or sneaking around. "Let me get this straight," I said, trying not to laugh. "You, the same woman who literally told me to go relieve my stress with someone else, are now furious that I actually did it? Don't twist my words." She shrieked back. I just shook my head. "I don't have to twist anything, Karen. I remember exactly what you said." That shut her up for a second. I could tell I'd hit a nerve. But then she switched gears. "You're a disgusting, selfish pig. You never respected me. All you ever cared about was one thing. I should have known you were weak." Ah, the old, insult him until he breaks, routine. "You do realize this whole mess exists because of you, right?" I said. "You refused therapy, wouldn't talk, shut down every attempt at intimacy, and basically ignored reality. But the second I actually do what you told me to do, suddenly I'm the villain." She went quiet again. Then she dropped her bombshell. "I'm divorcing you, Brian. You're a cheater and a liar, and since you're the one who destroyed our marriage, I'll be expecting compensation for all the emotional pain you caused me." I couldn't help it, I laughed out loud. Probably not my smartest move, but come on, how could I not? "Compensation?" I repeated. "For what?" "Following your instructions. You think you're so clever, huh? Well, in court, I'm the victim here, and you're about to pay for what you did." That's when it all clicked. She never actually wanted me to go out and cheat. She wanted to set a trap. She figured I'd eventually snap, beg for her attention, or mess up in a way that would make me legally responsible for the end of our marriage. Too bad for her, I saw it coming. If you ever want to know if someone's been plotting something for a while, just watch how they act when they finally get to put their plan into motion. Karen was in her element. The second she filed for divorce, she turned into a woman on a mission. She hired a top-tier lawyer, started rocking power suits, and strutted around like she was the star of some legal drama. She wasn't heartbroken or devastated, she was fired up. This wasn't about my so-called betrayal, this was her strategy all along. As for me, I wasn't losing any sleep. I got myself a good lawyer, kept my cool, and just kept living my life. While Karen was busy plotting her big revenge, I was spending my free time with Mia. Mia didn't expect me to read her mind. She didn't turn every conversation into a battle. She laughed at my dumb jokes, loved tacos, and never made life feel like a competition. The difference between the two of them was night and day. When the big day finally rolled around, I was ready. Karen walked into that courtroom looking like she'd already won, strutting in with her legal team and her perfectly rehearsed speech. I could practically see the headlines she was imagining: "Poor betrayed wife demands justice from cheating husband." She expected me to be on the ropes, maybe even begging for mercy. What she didn't see coming was that I was already 10 steps ahead. When it was finally my turn to talk, I kept my cool and laid everything out for the court. I explained how I'd done everything I could to save our marriage, how I'd suggested therapy, tried to have honest conversations, even brought in professionals to help us work through things. I made it clear that Karen had shot down every single attempt I made to fix what was broken. And then, I played my ace, the video. The second I mentioned it, Karen's face went pale. She had no clue I'd recorded that conversation. As soon as the judge hit play, the whole courtroom got to hear Karen's voice, crystal clear: "If Brian is struggling so much without intimacy, he can just get it somewhere else. And then, go ahead, darling, get it out of your system." You could have heard a pin drop. Karen's lawyer looked like he wanted to crawl under the table. The judge just rubbed his temples, probably wondering how he ended up with this circus. The judge turned to my psychologist, who had already reviewed the footage, and asked for his take. The psychologist explained, calm as ever, that this wasn't a case of infidelity, it was a textbook example of calculated manipulation. I just sat back and watched as Karen's whole case fell apart right in front of her. After hours of legal back and forth, the judge finally gave his ruling: everything would be split right down the middle, 50-50. No alimony, no extra claims, nothing. It was as fair and straightforward as it gets. And honestly, I couldn't have been happier. I wasn't out for revenge. I didn't need to win. I just wanted out. Half of everything was more than enough for me. I could rebuild. I could start over. Karen, on the other hand, was furious. She wanted it all. She wanted to see me crushed, begging for mercy. Instead, she walked out with only half, her big plan blown to pieces. I walked out of that courthouse feeling lighter than I had in years, free from the endless fights, the mind games, the constant stress. For the first time in a long time, I felt like I could actually breathe. Life after the divorce. Honestly, it was fantastic. Mia and I made it our mission to try every taco place in town, took random road trips just because we could, and just enjoyed being together. No drama, no power plays, no tiptoeing around someone's moods. Just simple, genuine happiness. Then, out of nowhere, something wild happened. One afternoon, I was scrolling through the news, not really paying attention, when a headline nearly made me spit out my coffee: "Corporate Scandal Rocks Senior Executive, Accused of Workplace Manipulation and Coercion." I clicked on that article faster than I've ever clicked anything in my life, and sure enough, the executive at the center of the scandal was none other than Karen's old boss. Turns out, this guy had been messing around with several women at work, promising them promotions and bonuses if they played along, then tossing them aside when he got bored. Sounded a little too familiar, honestly. My curiosity got the better of me, so a few days later, I reached out to an old acquaintance, someone who used to work with Karen and just happened to be involved in the internal investigation. That a few nights later, I met up with my old acquaintance for a couple of beers, just to catch up and see what he knew. After a drink or two, he let the whole story spill out. "Oh man, your ex. She was right in the middle of that whole mess." I tried to keep my face neutral, but inside, I was bracing myself. "What do you mean?" I asked, trying to sound casual. He let out a long sigh. "She was one of them. The boss played her just like he played everyone else, fed her a bunch of promises, made her think she was special, then tossed her aside when he was done. And when she realized she'd been used, she completely lost it. That's when it all came together. Karen had been sleeping with her boss behind my back. And it wasn't just some quick fling, either. She really believed she was setting herself up for a better future, expecting promotions, perks, maybe even a fast track to the top. But instead of getting everything she thought she deserved, she got burned. Twice. When she finally figured out she was just another name on his list, she tried to fight back. That's when things got ugly. He started freezing her out of big projects, slashed her bonuses, and even tried to get her fired. This dragged on for months. And, looking back, it was right around then that Karen started acting out at home. But here's the wild part: instead of facing up to what she'd done, instead of taking responsibility for her own choices, she turned all that anger on me. In her mind, none of it was her fault. It wasn't her boss's fault, either. No, it was men. All men. And I just happened to be the closest, easiest target. Sitting there, letting all this sink in, I actually felt a weird sense of relief. Suddenly, everything made sense, the sudden coldness, the need to control everything, the bizarre, empowerment stuff she'd gotten into, the whole divorce circus. She wasn't just trying to punish me, she was lashing out at every guy for what one man had done to her. And I was just collateral damage in her personal war. But here's the thing, the difference between me and her boss. I actually cared about her. I never lied to her, never betrayed her trust. And yet, I was the one she wanted to see suffer. Life's funny that way. As for what happened to Karen after all this, honestly, I have no idea. She switched jobs, moved to a new city. Maybe she started over, maybe she found someone else to blame. But me? I walked away with my sanity, my finances in good shape, and a truly great woman by my side. If you enjoyed hearing my story, go ahead and subscribe to the channel. Wishing you a great day and the best of luck out there.